at the end of the day, you have more to gain than to lose. And maybe you do it and it sucks. And then maybe you do it again and it sucks a little less. And then that snowballs into really enjoying it and being good at it. So can't hurt to see what's on the other side.
Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat of Take the Doughnut, here to help you get inspiration and get donuts. I'm a motivational keynote speaker, and today I'm bringing you a very exciting Take the Doughnut interview with Iridessence, who is a Vogue-Featured Burlesque Performer, voted fifth most influential burlesque artist worldwide. Welcome, Iridessence.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to talk with you. And for those who haven't seen it, this is my second time talking with Iridessence
Yeah.
because we actually talked during Rom-Com month when we covered the movie Burlesque.
Yeah.
You were one of three burlesque artists that were featured in that discussion. So I'm so glad to be able to talk with you again, but this time about you and about your life.
Yes, I'm so excited to be featured and to be able to talk a little bit more about myself and also to be made up this time because last time it was moving madness and I came as I was.
That's where we have to be sometimes. Well, before we get into anything more personal, I have to ask, what's your favorite donut?
Uh Probably, well, to be real, anything I can get my hands on that's actually gluten free, because I'm gluten intolerant, so that definitely plays a part in it. But you know those crumble top like coffee donuts from Entenmann's,
Ooh,
like with the little balls and the powdered sugar on top?
sure.
That has been on my brain for the past 2 years. And one day I did find a gluten free recipe. One day I'm gonna attempt to make those.
Oh my goodness. I haven't thought about those in a long time. Those are like a childhood memory for me.
Yeah, same.
So good. All right. Well, I said just a little bit about you up front, but tell us more about yourself. What should we know about you?
Well, I'm a burlesque performer, as mentioned before, and I have been featured in Vogue for that as well as historical costume. My aesthetic umbrella is quite wide, but usually I like to say that it features vintage and historical themes married to radical self-love and a socio-political scape that marginalizes bodies like mine. So that's very much what's behind my work is taking the classic aesthetics of beauty and applying them to myself, which is the kind of body that has not typically been featured as a symbol of beauty historically.
What a beautiful mission or objective. I'm so glad to hear that broken down. And I've seen a lot of your pictures, but to hear it articulated that way really puts it into context for me. Um, just to reset this for people who have never seen a Take the Donut interview before. So basically, Take the Donut for me is another way to say carpe diem. It's all about going after the things that you want in life. And it comes from this very strange thing that happened to me in college where I left an actual donut on a table and it almost immediately became an object lesson for me in what it looks like to leave opportunities behind. So I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut whenever I can. And so this conversation is all about going after goals, going after opportunities, the things we want in life. And what does that actually look like when we go to do it, practically speaking? So for you, Iridescence, I wanted to ask this, how are you with going after goals? What is that process like for you?
Well, I suffer from intense imposter syndrome to be honest, but that's usually in regard to my art. It's never in regard to my body and the choice to have my body be visible in spaces where it typically has not been. So, on one hand, I'm very much like take the donut, not thinking about it on the terms of like my physical form, which unfortunately a lot of people do still struggle with that. People of all different kinds of sizes and shapes. But when it comes to my art, I'm a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more nervous, but honestly, I think about the fact that to a couple of different things. I think about this idea that women have this idea that everything has to be perfect before we share things or before we go for the thing. And there's been a lot of different instances where I realized I was stopping myself from doing something because I wasn't good at it. But the only way you get better at it is by doing it. So I do try to remind myself that at the end of the day, there's no rule that says I have to be good at what I do to do it. It helps, certainly, especially for opportunities to share your work in the venues and spaces that you want to. But a lot of what I do is just deciding that whether it's going to be good or not, I'm going to give it a try. And then eventually I start to see the kind of output that I really want. So that's how I kind of go for things. And as well, just there's we under late capitalism, there's so many influences that tell you you're not allowed to like do or be or have joy. Do things that bring you joy, have joy, etc., unless it's productive. And while I do like to be productive when it's appropriate, I like to think that somewhere some like billionaire is upset that like I get to have joy and that I'm not letting whatever industry they're trying to promote me to buy to like feel good about myself, that I'm not listening to that and I'm just doing what I want.
What a fun way to look at joy. Sticking it to the
Very like
man.
spite, yeah. Joy out of spite is definitely something I enjoy. So
So good. I mean, you have this way of framing things that's just a little different than anything I've ever heard. So this is so fun. When you have something really big that you're going after, and especially when you know that imposter syndrome is going to start rearing its head, what is it that keeps you motivated? If it's going to be a long haul to get from here to there, if you know there's going to be a lot of steps or a lot of time or a lot of effort required, yeah, what keeps you motivated in that process?
that's definitely something I've actually been thinking about for myself lately because growing up, I definitely had issues with procrastination and follow through and finishing projects and realizing that reflect on our inner child and things that we went through growing up, and I didn't have a lot of structure and training in finishing things. Finishing things is its own skill. Breaking down things into achievable goals is its own skill that I used to blame myself for not being able to do. Like, I definitely was one of those kids in enrichment and a bright child. And then that just started to not really be reflected anymore in my grades as much as I would have liked throughout high school when education really got real. And so I wasn't really brought up with the tools of studying and making goals and like breaking down a big project into like bite-sized pieces that you can achieve. And I've found, honestly, I feel like it's partially through sheer luck and a lot of like free time and frankly obsession um, for burlesque, for me to be able to break down like what I wanted to do on stage and how I was going to achieve that. And that's also gotten better over the years, or at least it's evolved, I should say, over the years. And so now my process, to give an example, looks like just dreaming for a bit, then scaling down that dream to be a little bit more realistic, and really thinking about like really envisioning in my head like what could this look like on stage with the tools that I have access to, and maybe an extra thing that like I didn't really think I had access to, but like maybe if I do a little bit more research I can maybe achieve that one aspect. Like, sure, I'm not going to have a Dita Von Teese level of production value immediately, but what's one thing, one aspect I can take over the top with, on top of what I know already how to do. So, and then I get to researching, and then I get to sourcing, listing the supplies I need and listing the components, and then researching like where do I find these things? How much is it going to cost me? Budget, and then waiting for things to come in the mail or going out and getting things, and then starting the process. And it, I guess the in between is just like, it's partially hyperfixation and partially dedication. So I don't really know that there is something super specific that one can do beyond, to get yourself motivated to finish a project beyond really, really doing something you really, really love is a good start, I would say, too, because at the end of the day, I don't have the same level of drive for a lot of the things that I don't like to do. So, frankly, for me, a lot of it is focusing on what's important to me, and that is a good drive maker, in my opinion. And then breaking down into digestible pieces by just vision boarding or like I guess I have a very visual component too. Like I'm very good at like envisioning things, and I realize that's not something that everyone is able to do. But a lot of what helps me break things down is like visualizing each individual part, and sometimes that can be aided by writing down those things as well. And I've also started sketching. I'm not a good sketcher, but like over the past few years, I've like sketched out things to kind of like come up with something and to continue reminding myself throughout the whole process of what I think the end component can be. Because there's definitely that last 10% is really where a project will get me, and particularly with acts, where I'm like, well, time to give up, time to throw this all in the trash. It's a hot mess. No, thank you. Um, but also, again, part of what keeps me going at certain points is I've already invested so much time and so much money. I cannot give up just because of the amount of money I've put into something or the amount of time I've put into something. So that is also a big motivator, is not wanting to release my investment, because frugal. I won't say cheap, but frugal for sure.
Yeah, no, so many relatable things here. And I love that you broke down multiple areas where the motivation may flag and you have to really work on it. And it sounds like you kind of know that going in. So maybe it helps you manage the process and your expectations along the way. I am curious, and I think you've been touching on this as we've been going along, but just to ask it directly, a lot of times when we're going after things we want, challenges come up, obstacles come in our way. And for you, is there a particular brand of challenge that just keeps coming up over and over again? So, like, no matter what it is you're working on, it could be in burlesque or outside of that world, you can expect this Achilles heel to rear its head for you. What is that for you?
Well, um, probably the imposter syndrome. It used to be a financial aspect. Um, and that was kind of mitigated by credit cards is one thing, but also I take budgeting pretty seriously. I've relaxed a little bit on it in the last couple years, but I would take budgeting pretty seriously. So, and realizing that this is something I really want and it's not frivolous. And so I get to invest in it because it is important to me. So that is kind of how I mitigated some of the financial setbacks, or at least the financial like concerns around doing things, while also trying to like, source, do as much as I can and source as affordably as possible. But the imposter syndrome is probably now the biggest aspect. And I know I keep coming back to it, but a lot of me working through that is reframing over and over again that I don't have to be good at something as much as I want to, and it's great if I can. And if that's like not the thing that gets me, if I'm like, no, this has to look good, this has to be this, um, really just leaning into the fact that there's so many different kinds of people doing this thing, and how I interpret it is uniquely my own. And just by virtue of me existing in a fat black body, what I'm doing is subversive, and I get to be up there. So a lot of how I like work through my imposter syndrome is reminding myself of these things, that I get to do this and that it's important that I do this, not just for myself, but for people who see me and look like me, who need to see themselves. And then also sometimes just putting the thing down for a bit, not too long, but putting the thing down for a bit and completely changing what I'm seeing, feeling in the moment, just like fully pulling myself out and then ejecting myself into something else that is going to take my mind off of it. And then letting some of that ickiness that I'm feeling kind of dissipate and coming back when I feel refreshed or at least reset, in order to like look at things with a little bit more of a clearer head.
Some really good advice in there. You know, when you think back on your life, and this could be a personal or professional answer, what would you say is the biggest donut you've ever taken? Biggest opportunity you've said yes to, biggest thing you've gone after?
I think there's a few probably, but the one that comes to mind immediately was quitting my job as a customer service representative and online chat, like customer help person, basically a vessel for lots of customer abuse, basically. When I was working for a ticket resale company, and not just abuse from the customers, but also just a lot of questionable decisions made by management and corporate. And it was at a time where I didn't know what I could do full time. And while I won't say that burlesque full time is a walk in the park, or that I'm really paying all of my bills through burlesque alone, I will say that I took that donut and decided I didn't have to take any more BS from this company. And I sent the whole company through the chat a very strongly worded letter about how I felt. Um, and then I quit my job and I lived off of my savings indefinitely. And I've just been like going ever since, and doing the odd job here and there and making money through social media and side jobs as well, but mainly focused on burlesque as, personal fulfillment and also financial fulfillment. And that was probably the biggest thing I can think of recently, or at least, in my life in the past 6 years, I guess it's been now, to really focus on what I wanted to do.
Amazing. I mean, so inspiring. You didn't just let go of your safety net. You basically lit it on fire. It's eventually we have to get to the point where we're going to do that. If you want to go after the thing that you want, you can try to get as close as possible so the jump isn't so big, but there's still a jump involved. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to hear your story around that. What's the donut that you're trying to take right now, or something you could talk about?
Hmm. I've been kind of in a rest season, we'll say, due to having moved across country with my husband. And I think it's important to rest when needed for sure. And I'm also excited now to like start dreaming up things and possibilities and working on a new act. Um, I don't want to say that that is more of the taking the donut aspect, because like that's just my process and what I do. But I think the next really big thing I want to stop telling myself I have all of these like, reasons for not doing is probably learning to use a sewing machine and like creating things from patterns and draping. And I know it's not going to look good for some time, most likely, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. I've already got a sewing machine. I need to have it serviced and I need to get into some classes for it. But I've already started doing a couple of things, and then the move kind of like set things back, and that machine definitely needs to get serviced. But I think because it's so vital to so much of what I do within burlesque, within historical costume, or just having the clothes that you want to wear within my personal style as well, or making alterations, that sort of thing. I do a lot of things by hand, and the idea of constructing a garment from scratch with a machine and following a pattern really, really intimidates me. Despite that, probably some of the hoops I've jumped through to like achieve what I want, costume wise or clothing wise, is probably at the end of the day a lot more work than just, taking the donut and learning to sew with a machine. Despite that, I still feel like intense, I don't want to say fear, but just, yeah, I'm afraid that I won't be able to do it, or that I won't, you know, stick with it. And I'm afraid of being intimidated by this machine and getting frustrated and wanting to like throw it across the room, but not being able to because it is actually 50 pounds. Um, yeah. So that's kind of my big thing. And I know it's the thing because I think about it and I do this. I know I have to do this, but I don't want to. And it's not that I don't want to because of it inherently, but I have these little ideas in my head about how hard it's going to be. And it probably will be hard, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't try. So
Hmm. Well, it's so good to hear what's in progress for you and also how you're feeling about it. And it feels like a very raw and candid way of explaining what it's like to be in your head and what it's like to go about a process like this for you. There may be some people out there who are watching who have a donut of their own they want to take, and it could just still be an idea for them, or maybe they've started on the path and they're looking for some guidance or some inspiration. So let's sprinkle some encouragement. And what would you say to those people?
I would say at the end of the day, you have more to gain than to lose. And maybe you do it and it sucks. And then maybe you do it again and it sucks a little less. And then that snowballs into really enjoying it and being good at it. So can't hurt to see what's on the other side.
So beautifully said. And I think that ties in really well with your thoughts about how so many of us seek perfection before we try a thing. It's like maybe we let go of that idea and we acknowledge that this, the process will get you to improvement, not the other way around. But for those who want to follow you on your journey, who perhaps want to see some of the things you make with that sewing machine, where can we find you? What links should I put in the description?
I'm on Instagram at Iridessence, and my burlesque account, which oftentimes a lot of the same thing is just posted there, is Jezebelly Presents. So I'm there. I'm also on Tumblr for anybody who is on there, although that is more vision boarding more so than I do share my own things on there and my thoughts occasionally, but that's probably more of an aesthetic vision board. So yeah, Iridescence. I'm on there, and that's probably the main two platforms that I'm on. I have a Facebook, but it just doesn't really get. I have a personal Facebook, and then I have a public page, but it doesn't really get updated that much. But if you see me on there, that's also a place. Iridescence, aka Jezebelly, on Facebook. I should create a website soon, but I just haven't found it to be a priority.
Okay, well, everybody be sure to check out those resources. And if you liked hearing Iridescence's story, be sure to like and subscribe on this video because there's so many inspirational interviews still to come every week. But in the meantime, Iridescence, thank you so much for taking some time and talking with me and sharing your thoughts about taking the donut and going after the things that you want in life.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your patience while I had my like moving. I went into the moving cave and just laid there for a couple months.
So many of us know what that feels like. I get it completely. But thank you for carving out the time now. And to everybody who's watching this, go out there, get inspiration, get donuts. Bye, everyone.